Hello, welcome to episode 3 of Beyond the Box Score. I'm Trayvon Hastings. With me is Joey Korzanowski. Once again, new week, new episode, and boy, do we have a lot of topics to talk about.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. There was a lot that went down between college football, NFL, MLB playoffs started. We're all involved with all of that. So hopefully this is one of two episodes this week where we can kind of recap everything, and then we'll have another episode up later in the week where we'll preview everything, kind of how we did last week.
Yeah, hopefully it's two Tigers win against the Guards episodes. Tigers got a big performance from the best pitcher in the world, and they were able to squeak out a victory in game one. We're going to also discuss the plethora of injuries that are destroying teams in the NFL right now. This was a big week for injuries, and it changed a lot of team seasons, at least temporarily. Dylan Gabriel, potential QB change as well, from what we've heard, what's been rumored as well in the Cleveland media. So the Browns might be making a change. Is A.J. Brown unhappy in Philadelphia? He also made some controversial tweets, per usual, for wide receivers. The Rams Colts game, we want to shout out A.D. Mitchell. We're going to talk about him in a more in depth conversation later. And then we'll recap our locks from last week, how we did, as well as go more in depth on the Oregon Penn State, Bama being a national contender, and also, of course, the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we're actually going to start with the NFL injury bug and all the various things that we got to watch on an injury scale this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is always something that's hard to talk about, just because injuries happen at every level and every year in the NFL, obviously. But that Tyreek Hill injury on Monday night, prayers up to him. I mean, that's you never want to see that. But I think the main thing with Tyreek Hill, at least that I took away, I'm watching the the Dolphins and Jets game, and the field looks slippery, Trey. I don't know if you felt the same way, kind of watching it, but players were slipping all around. Like I felt like they couldn't like put their foot in the ground and go. So like honestly, I was sitting there at the beginning of the game, I'm thinking like something bad's gonna happen. Like this isn't gonna end well. And literally, later on in the game, Tyreek Hill he's running out of bounds and he tries to plant his foot and his foot just slipped and his knee bent and it was all bad. So I don't know if it's a field issue for the NFL. I know we've always kind of been aware of the issues that the turf brings. Malik Neighbors in New York, I'm sure that had a part to do with it. Even Cincinnati Joe Burrow, I'm sure that had a part to do with it as well. So I don't know if it's a field issue or if it's just kind of a freak accident, you could say.
There's been a lot of discussion for the last few years, honestly, about the whole grass versus turf thing. And the league has basically tried to create studies that say the injuries don't get increased by one surface or the other. And also, the reality is, a lot of these teams and probably the league in general wants to save money by going with turf rather than having to maintain grass. So it's one of those things where obviously I think grass from a being able to basically like have grip right with whatever you're wearing and being able to cut and turn is a little more effective than turf. Having been on both surfaces, having done some sort of physical activity on both surfaces, I can also attest to this that most players probably prefer grass. I know there's going to be some that are turf people, but I think the grass thing would make more sense. Tyreek Hill's injury was, kind of freak. He was getting pushed out of bounds, kind of rolled up like a tumbleweed, and then his leg got bent in that process. So his leg got caught up underneath him. Very Gordon Hayward esque, to be honest with you. That's kind of how it looked. First thing I thought of. The Malik Neighbors thing, he non contact planting to jump. I mean, that's going to happen. It might
Hmm.
have been turf, but that one's a little also freak. I mean, to be honest with you, the Lamar injury late in the game against the Chiefs, could talk about that as well because boy, they just got absolutely clobbered, um, and they did not look good for another week. Derrick Henry did not look good for another week, and now they'll be going to Cooper Rush because Lamar has a bum hamstring and he'll be out 2 to 4 weeks. So the Ravens already at 1-3, losing their best court, their best player arguably, and best in terms of that elite group that in that top four range, they are going to be without him for the time being. So they also lost their all pro caliber defensive tackle in this game. So they've got some injuries to deal with as well. And then we talked about Joe Burrow previously, James Conner last week for the Cardinals. All injuries that are going to prove detrimental to every team's season that we mentioned.
Well, yeah, especially Lamar. I mean, I think you know this. I had the Ravens as my Super Bowl pick before the year. I thought they drafted really well. I thought Lamar coming back. I thought he was going to kind of be out on a revenge tour this season with the way that the year ended last year for them. But just has not been a good year. And I really noticed this against the Lions game. Lamar just didn't look as dominant on the ground. It really felt like anytime that like in the past, the passing game would kind of fall apart. Lamar would just be able to take off and run, and he would have that kind of quick first step, kind of that burst that it was just like, damn, man, how do you tackle him? And I kind of chalked it up to more just the Lions having a really good game plan for him, and the Lions' defensive athletes really just being able to spy him and kind of eliminate that part of his game. But against the Chiefs, it just wasn't there, and guys were open, and he wasn't throwing it, and then he wasn't able to run. And I think he was starting to get frustrated with that, both against the Lions and the Chiefs, because he holds himself to a high standard. He knows what he's capable of. He knows that he, wants to be able to rely on his legs in those situations, but he hasn't been able to. And obviously, it's a huge part to why the Ravens are 1-3.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think it's not going to help, obviously, with the schedule they play. Playing two pretty top tier defenses. I'm kind of still hesitant to give that notion to the Browns, but they are a top 10 unit, so top
Yeah.
10. Well, we can call them elite in that sense because it's above league average. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. They've got all the athletes on that side of the ball in the secondary. Jalen Ramsey also pulled his hamstring. We didn't have it on here, but it just sparked my mind. He pulled his hamstring trying to catch up to a receiver downfield late in the game. So his status is TBD. Luckily for them, they have Darius Slay. Joey Porter Jr. is supposed to be coming back soon. They signed Jabril Peppers last week to the practice squad. Like, the Steelers have a ton of other options. The Ravens obviously can't replace Lamar. I mean, that's just something that is not replaceable. For the Dolphins, it's the same thing with Tyreek Hill. You're going to have a lot more Malik Washington. I think the Dolphins should do a lot more of Devon A-Chain split out and putting Ollie Gordon in the backfield. You have them both on the field at all times, and it can add a creative tool to your offense. That's what I would do. I'm not Mike McDaniel, and I frankly don't want to be Mike McDaniel, so it's just an idea. For the neighbors thing, same thing. Can't really replace them. If you're a fantasy player, go pick up Darius Slayton because he's going to have an uptake in targets. But the Giants, frankly, are going to be a very run heavy team. They're going to be the NFC version of what the Jets are with Justin Fields and Brees Hall. Braylon Allen goes down with an injury in that same game. Going to give more Brees Hall, but the Giants have Cam Scatterboo likely going to be RB1 now, even when Tyrone Tracy comes out because he's also hurt. So the moral of the story is there's a very large majority of NFL injuries. And most of them are a lot more impactful than we typically expect. Like the Eagles played again this week without Lane Johnson. So it's one of those weird kind of early season injury bugs. And it's not just for one team, it's honestly across the league.
Yeah, I really think it is every team. I mean, even take a look at the Browns. DeJuan Jones got hurt against the Packers. Jack Conklin has been hurt again. So the Browns have been, down two tackles. So, I mean, yeah, it really is kind of a league wide thing, and I think unfortunately there really is no solution for this. I mean, I know specifically for DeJuan Jones, he just the Packers player kind of, I forget who it was, but kind of went low, took him out at the knee. I guess you could say it might have been a dirty play, but again, just kind of a freak play on a screenplay. And then Jack Conklin has just been banged up in general. So I mean, yeah, it's a league wide thing, but I think all of this points to the NFL needs to expand the rosters from 53 to 60, in my opinion.
I've never heard someone say it before, but like I'm not against it. Obviously, I think other ways to do it too is obviously increasing the practice squad, having guys on the practice squad that are eligible to kind of do what you're saying.
Hmm.
Get elevated as almost emergency like 7 players, right? Because there are emergency QBs. They're not supposed to be active, but in the event, and that's thanks to the 49ers when all their QBs got hurt in that NFC Championship game against Philly. So
Yeah.
there's some adjustments to it. I don't know if it's ever going to get past 53. I do think with the expansion of games, though, we probably should also consider expanding the rosters. That's just my opinion. But um, speaking of the rosters, the Browns roster, which had a ton of quarterbacks, they seem to have potentially found their answer. It felt like for a couple weeks. Now they're going to pivot and go to potentially a new solution which is rookie quarterback Dylan Gabriel. I know we've talked about this previously. You are relatively high on Gabriel as well. So when I get your thoughts on this as a Browns fan.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would say relatively high. I would say I see the upside and I see why the Browns were high on him. And I guess I kind of have talked myself into why they took him in the third round. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is a little bit sooner than the Browns had planned, and it's a lot sooner than fans had expected, or that they had thought before the season. Because overall, I think the Browns' plan was to start Kenny Pickett at quarterback week one, and I think when he got hurt in training camp, I think they panicked. And then I think they talked themselves into Joe Flacco because you couldn't really see how immobile he was in camp. You just saw the arm and you said, yep, that's good enough. It's kind of all we have. So now we sit here a couple of weeks in and Joe Flacco hasn't been doing, what they want. And you really can't waste this defense. And I know that this wouldn't be the perfect situation. But first of all, we should say this isn't official. This has just kind of been speculated on Twitter. The Browns haven't came out and said anything official. But when when Kevin Stefanski comes out in his press conference and he's directly asked if he's going to stick with Joe Flacco, and he completely deflects the question. That completely leads me to believe that it's time for a QB change. So yeah, all signs are pointing toward Dylan Gabriel getting the start in London against the Vikings. And now a lot of people on Brown's Twitter and such have said, "Oh my God, you're going to do this to this kid? You're going to start him overseas? His first start against a Brian Flores defense?" Well, here's the way I look at it. I watched this Brian Flores defense last week overseas against the Steelers. The Steelers had no problem moving the football. They ran all over them. Aaron Rodgers made a ton of great plays against this defense. So I don't think this defense is as potent as some people are making it out to be. But the situation might not be perfect, but it really never will be. To be honest, it's the NFL. All these defenses are good. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week, but yeah, I think this is the right time to go to Dylan Gabriel. I think with the defense you have and the way that they're playing, you have to show them that you're trying to win. And I think that this can kind of give this defense a spark.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I was fully in the Kenny Pickett camp in terms of starting week one as soon as the Browns traded for him. I thought that would for sure happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he obviously backed up Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, so I got to watch him for a couple of games. And he was very solid in the games he was there. Obviously, he had much better weapons around him in comparison to when he was in Pittsburgh, but Kenny Pickett's ability as a quarterback is somewhat still there, and frankly, I think there's more of it than all the other QBs on the Browns roster, besides, peak Deshaun Watson, which we probably aren't going to ever see again. So,
Unfortunately.
Pickett getting hurt kind of screwed up the Browns' plans, I think. I know in their depth chart, though, Pickett was never listed as QB1, so I don't really understand it. I'll be curious to see, like, if and when Pickett comes back, if they actually then decide to pivot and go to him. If the season's already lost, do they just punt on that and say never mind? Because Pickett's in a situation where, his contract's not going to be as long term as Gabriel or Shador potentially. So I would like, if I was a Browns fan, which I'm thankfully not, no disrespect to the fan base, but I think I would like to see Kenny Pickett at some point because he kind of is a combination of mobility with some arm talent. He's gonna make some turnover risky plays at times, but his ability to move is gonna open up their offense. And I know Dylan Gabriel can do the same things, but the difference is he has a lot less experience and frankly no experience in comparison to Kenny Pickett.
Well, here's the thing. The Browns traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders. I don't know if you saw that a couple of weeks ago. It was right before the regular season. They traded him for a fifth round pick. So they traded for Kenny Pickett. They gave up a fifth round pick. Then they traded him back to the Raiders, and they received a fifth round pick. So the whole thing essentially was a wash. But I think they made that move knowing that they liked what they saw out of Dylan Gabriel in camp and in preseason. Honestly, and I know a lot of people were very quick to point out the pick six that Dylan Gabriel threw in preseason. And trust me, I defended it. I said I don't think it was fully on his fault. Obviously you can't make that pass, but that ball very easily could have been caught. There's a reason Deontay Johnson is no longer on the Browns. He did not go and catch that ball, but at the end of the day, I think Dylan Gabriel plays a little bit similar to Pickett. I think they like the mobility for Dylan Gabriel, and I think that's something that they're going to rely on here. If they evidently do make the change from Flacco to Gabriel, that's something that he adds to this offense that Flacco didn't. Flacco is very stationary, and you saw it, right? Like Flacco just looked completely immobile, and it really sucks because Joe Flacco should have never been in this position. He's 40 years old. He should have never really been started. They should have just rolled with Dylan Gabriel from the start because look, Dylan Gabriel played 6 years in college. If he's not ready, if he's not ready now, he's never going to be, right? So I'll be excited to see the mobility that they use with Dylan Gabriel. I know somebody came on 92.3 The Fan. I think it was Jason Lloyd, and he said that the Browns playbook is essentially cut in half right now with Joe Flacco, just because you're limited, with him being immobile. They want to run these play action boots and slides and things like that, and they cannot do that with Joe Flacco. So I'll be interested to see how the playbook changes this week with Dylan Gabriel. I think they'll really open it up here in London.
I apologize, Kenny Pickett. Did not it actually. This is news to me. I had no idea. But
It was one of those moves that really flew under the radar. Honestly, like
yeah,
I don't think
I didn't
anybody really knew
get it
that.
across any media airwave.
Yeah.
But since he's with the Raiders, you know, this is not on the agenda. I would just like to say Geno Smith loves to lead the league in interceptions. There's a potential warranted QB change looming in Las Vegas as well if they continue to blow games because Geno keeps turning the ball over. Now, I like Geno. I think he's a top 15 to 17 quarterback, but he's got to stop the turnovers because at the end of the day, he's costing his team the game. So that's a whole other thing. But I would agree, like the Gabriel thing will open up their offense. There's definitely a lot of play action stuff with the coaching tree Stefanski has come from. There's a lot of play action involved in there, and they haven't been able to run much of it. So it's also going to make it easier for the O line to protect a mobile quarterback. At the same time, it makes it a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll make it easier knowing that he's not stationary and he's not going to move. So the defense knows that. You don't really know where Gabriel's going to go at all times. So that's all I have on that. Speaking of, the frustration, the Browns coaching staff not able to open the playbook. We've got very unhappy, it appears, A.J. Brown in Philadelphia. Um, my thoughts are this is very typical. This is very receiver like. I would prefer my receiver not be like others and get too greedy and too egotistical, frankly. I know a lot of receivers are like that, but um to debunk the whole trade thing, AJ Brown is going to be with the Eagles, and it's purely for the fact that he has one of the largest cap hits that the league has, frankly. And at the position, it might be the largest one. I'm looking right now to double check the number, but he's going to be in Philadelphia. He's not going to get traded. It's going to destroy the Eagles' flexibility in terms of cap space if they were to move him. While and you also put this, you understand the frustration. Like I understand it too. I would be frustrated if I was Devontae Smith, if I was
Mm-hmm.
Dalvin Butler, who's actually probably been their best receiving target. But the reality is they're 4-0. Their offense does not look good in any game except for probably the four quarters between the first half of the Bucks, second half of the Rams, in terms of the passing consistency. But Devontae Smith's not complaining, not to my understanding. Saquon is only averaging like 3.1 yards per carry right now on the season. So they can't even get the run game going. So the fact that they are 4-0 is a true testament to the one model of consistency that they do have in their offense, which is Jalen Hurts, as well as the apparently elite, despite not having a good secondary corner on the other side of Quinyon Mitchell, defense. So you have Cooper DeJean. He plays in the slot a lot. He plays in that nickel corner position. They literally don't have a corner two that's reliable right now, but they're 4-0. So his situation is fascinating.
Well, yeah, and like the thing that I see this as is like, yeah, AJ Brown might be, slightly unhappy. I put down under, I understand the frustration because he's a competitor. Obviously, he wants to contribute to winning. He's getting paid a lot of money to be there. He wants to be the reason, that they're winning, which is understandably so. I can't blame him for that. But the number one thing that solves everything is winning, which, as you had pointed out, that is what Philly is doing. So how bad could it really be? Honestly, But I saw some interesting stats on Twitter. AJ Brown, since arriving in Philly, about 8 catches per game. Obviously, at 26 touchdowns, he's been top 10 in target share every year. He was second in 2024. He has an NFL record of 6 games of 125 plus receiving yards in 2022. a three-time All-Pro, three-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, of course. Only Eagle with multiple 1,400-yard seasons and top two single-season receiving yards records in Eagles history. So overall, from the grand scheme of things, when you look at it from a larger perspective, I don't think anything is really being wasted from a week to week perspective, potentially. But I think overall, this could really just be chalked up to more of a rough start for the Eagles' offense in general. I don't think it's just him. Uh, but in terms of trade rumors, yeah, we both know he's not going anywhere. I think Howie Roseman is not dumb enough to trade him away. But even think of it from a fit perspective. What are really the best parts of AJ Brown's game? He's great in the deep ball and he's great after the catch. Well, what's something that the Eagles do to give him the ball? They throw him the ball deep, which is how he makes plays, or they give him the ball in RPOs and they let him run, which is how he makes plays. So AJ Brown is a perfect fit in this offense. I think he knows that too. I think just in the moment, he's a little frustrated. Now, I do wish that he would probably keep that to himself a little bit, not necessarily take to social media or be reading books on the sideline. But at the end of the day, the Eagles are winning, so I don't think anything. There's really nothing to worry about here.
Yeah, he has I believe the third highest cap hit he does on the Eagles, over $17.5 million. He has a near $90 million dead cap, so he's not getting moved, and he's also under contract until his free agent year of 2030. Like, he's going to be with the Eagles. That's just the reality. I think with all the numbers you rattled off, he is frankly one of the more underappreciated and probably underrated receivers in the entire
Mm-hmm.
league. And to me, he is a top five caliber receiver. I will stand on that. I think that's been proven with his production. And I mean, he was very productive in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. So, I mean, he's been in two different situations and he's been successful, very successful in both situations. But um, his situation obviously is frustration. He put out that tweet about like basically keeping his mouth shut or not complaining because it'll look some. Or it was some just unnecessary tweet that I agree with you. He probably in house, but he's obviously frustrated and he's going to hear from it from the Philly media, and he's going to have to handle it now because he made it public. So that's on him, frankly, to be honest with you. But I don't really know what else to say. The Eagles' offense has been so predictable because in this last game they had 20 out of under center. Okay, so in single back, they had 14 runs and zero passes. In pistol, I believe it was 11 runs or it was 10 runs and it was one pass. And then in shotgun, they have attempted 26 passes and seven runs in terms of that game against the Bucs. So the reality is they don't have any versatility offensively. The play calling is very vanilla. Kevin Patula is obviously, like I said, no experience on any level. He's clearly still trying to figure it out. And I mean, it's just one of those situations where he's got to find a way to better balance that playbook. They have everything at their arsenal. They need to not, it shouldn't be when you go into shotgun, it's automatically a pass, or pistol, it's automatically a run. Single back, it's automatically a run. That's way too easy for the defense. So they got to find a way to add some kinks into their offense and go from there. But in terms
Well,
of,
I honestly, I think part of that will change with once they start getting the run game going because we know Saquon has kind of struggled to begin the year. I know his numbers aren't quite where they are, but I like they're going to figure this out, right? Like this is the Eagles; they won the Super Bowl last year. They're 4-0, right? Like their offense isn't fully clicking, and they're still 4-0. They're still finding ways to win games. They're still finding ways to put up points. I mean, what they've put up 30 in every game besides the no, they put up 20 against the Chiefs and like 24 against the Cowboys, but even the offense looked good against the Cowboys to start the game. So the Eagles will figure it out. And to your point about changing it up and becoming a little less predictable, I feel like that's just kind of something that you adapt throughout the season. The more you watch film, the more that you figure out about your offense. Uh, so there's really is no doubt in my mind that they will do that. To be honest.
yeah, and they're a contender, like you said, and so are these two teams that had a near shootout caliber game this week. The Rams and the Colts, and I didn't think we'd be saying the Colts would be a contender potentially. They're probably more on the pretender side, but it was a heck of a game. It was a heck of a game lost by the Colts, probably solely because of one particular player, that being A.D. Mitchell. So it was a great game. Puka went nuclear. Devontae Adams had a nice game. I mean, this was vintage Matt Stafford, nearly 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. And Daniel Jones and the Colts were able to kind of go back and forth with them, and they honestly would have won the game if not for two crucial plays made by their young receiver.
Yeah, he had the holding penalty that took away the Jonathan Taylor touchdown that would have given him the lead late, and then he had a really nice catch on it. It would have been a 75-yard touchdown had he not lost the ball at the goal line. So two of those plays right there that really take away, what could have been one a really great performance for him and the Colts. But I think it's interesting that you said you think the Colts are a little more on the pretender side. I think I would actually disagree. I've been all in on the Colts, even in my personal power rankings. I've had them in the top 10. I'm all in on the defense. I think what really this stems from is I'm also high in the Rams too. I think the big question for the Rams was Matt Stafford's back injury. Well, he put that to rest. I mean, he's been balling to start the year. Him and Puka, their chemistry has been on another level. So just the fact that the Colts were able to go into LA in a game that I'm not going to say they should have won because they didn't, but they very easily could have won had they executed on some of these plays. I think this is really telling. The Colts could very easily be 4-0 right now.
I agree. I solely say pretender just because they're going to get away with probably winning based off their schedule and their division at least 10 to 12 games just because the Texans, frankly, aren't good. They can't protect CJ Stroud. It's
Hmm.
just they have some pieces, but they basically don't have an O line. The Jags, I'm still skeptical on, frankly. I don't think you can win anything meaningful in the NFL anymore with Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne continues to run how he did 2 years ago this year, then they have some potential. But their defense has been turning teams over too. So I really think it's going to come down to the Jags and the Colts, which I didn't see myself saying, honestly, to start the year. And the Titans, we don't even need to discuss them. They destroyed my lock. Um, it was close for a little bit, and then it went completely downhill. So uh, they're a complete mess too, as Cam Ward very explicitly said in the post game. So yeah, I think the Colts have some legitimacy to them, but I want to see how the season progresses for them because it is the first quarter of the year, and you never know. Injuries happen. Their defense is pretty damn good to be honest with you, but they just need to figure it out. I mean, as long as you have Jonathan Taylor healthy, I think they'll be fine. They have a very underrated offensive line. And frankly, life's not bad for Daniel Jones. He's got Tyler Warren, he's got Michael Pittman. Josh Downs is a really good receiver that I like as well. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. I mean, they have an underrated core, and I think they can definitely make a push, maybe win a wild card game as well. I don't know if I'm willing to put them into the winning 2 games in the playoffs category yet, but that's all matchup dependent. So we'll see. But yeah, these are two teams that I think are going to be legit. And in the Rams' case, might be in the NFC Championship game playing potentially likely the Eagles. And we usually know how that goes between those two teams. But one thing that is certain is that it's going to be a close game. And the Rams have the ability to beat the Eagles because they have the weapons and the skill set and the coaching to match them.
Yeah, that's something we talked about last week. The Rams kind of, we said that the Eagles have the perfect winning formula. Well, I think the Rams have a really good formula to kind of combat that. I think they have the personnel to match up with the Eagles really well. So, yeah, if I had to bet on it right now, that would be my pick for the NFC Championship would be Rams Eagles, and I would be sat down for every down of that game. That would be some peak football. But I saw something interesting on Twitter that I wanted to bring up. Is Matthew Stafford the most wide receiver friendly quarterback of all time? And the only reason I thought this was interesting because we were talking a little bit before this, and I had pointed out, yeah, Matt Stafford allowed Megatron to have all these numbers for so many years in Detroit. And now, as soon as he comes over to LA, Cooper Cup wins the Triple Crown. And now you see what he's doing with Puka and Devontae Adams. And even, you see what he's done with guys like Tutu Atwell and just some of these other guys that aren't necessarily household names, but he makes life really easy for the receiver. And you had posed the kind of played the little devil's advocate to say you said has Matthew Stafford really just benefited from good receiver play, which I find kind of interesting because I would probably give a little more of the credit to Matthew Stafford just because. We have seen him do it with multiple guys now, right? Like Cooper Cup, he wasn't a premier receiver in college. Neither was Puka, to be honest. But you see what he's doing with these guys here in the NFL. But I think that also is a big credit to the Rams front office and scouting department. And I know we've all seen the clip of Sean McVay hyping up Puka Nakua before the draft process and all of that. So that's a huge credit to them. But yeah, I think Matthew Stafford is indeed the most receiver friendly quarterback. He makes life so easy. He throws just such a easy ball for receivers to catch.
I agree. I The point in my devil's advocate was also pointing out that ironically he's just always had very good receiver play for the most part, so it's kind of hard to judge like what he would be in a system without like a top receiver because he's always had a top receiver. So and he's
Mm-hmm.
always good security blankets around him. He had Brandon Pettigrew forever in Detroit at tight end, and that's an underrated athlete. Eric Ebron had a legacy run there for a little bit as well. So he's always had solid weapons, and even post Megatron, there was some weapons that they had there as well. So I think it's a relatively accurate statement in terms of elevating the receiver. But I also think it's just worth noting he's always had very good receivers around him. It's almost Aaron Rodgers like on the receiver thing because Aaron Rodgers had Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, and he had Devontae Adams forever. And then he switched teams, wanted to pivot and keep those players. He had Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, and they won like 6 games. So um, that might be more of a you're aging, stop playing football thing for Aaron Rodgers, but for Matt Stafford, he's clearly doing his best to overcome Father Time, even though clearly Father Time is trying to get him to stop playing football. So I think the statement's relatively true.
Well, let me point this out then. You remember Kenny Galladay got that big contract from the Giants, right? Who was the quarterback that threw him the football the year before so that he was able to get that big contract?
It was Matt Stafford.
Exactly. Matthew Stafford got Kenny Galladay paid. What did Kenny Galladay do without Matthew Stafford?
I mean, he was hurt for 4 years, but yes,
He was also the Giants, but
he's also
yeah.
on the Giants, which is a receiver curse for those who don't know. So, um, if Kenny Galladay was even healthy, I think he played 3 games for the Giants in 3 years. So that's a whole other thing. But yeah, Stafford's been blessed with healthy receivers and frankly good enough O lines to protect him for the most part. Early in Detroit and like that late Drew Brees Saints era, that wasn't really the case. But he's proven to be one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the league, in the history of the league, and in this previous era of quarterback. Definitely the most slept on one. And as depending on how long he plays, he might finish pretty high statistically in passing touchdowns, passing yards all time. Like there's some stuff that'll really catch people's eye in terms of how good Matthew Stafford has been and for how long he has been that good. And I think he's definitely one of the more underrated QBs over the last decade for sure.
Well, yeah, I think he's in what year 17 now. I think I saw that before the year, and I was like, Jesus, I did not realize it had been 17 years. I mean, we talk longevity. I mean, like the big thing with Tom Brady was, he played into his 40s. He played so long. You look at Aaron Rodgers now; he's playing into his 40s. Matthew Stafford's right up there with him.
Yeah, a lot of those QBs managed to play until they're like 38. I mean, Matt Ryan was on a team at 38. He wasn't as effective, but he was. Ben Roethlisberger played until he was, post 35. So the QB age range has frankly just continued to go up with all the advancements in science and health and all of it. So they're one of the positions that have probably been most blessed by it, as well as the several rule changes with the rough and passer. And I mean, they're definitely probably the most protected player in all of sports. Then that's not just NFL. That's every single sport, to be honest with you. So yeah, I that's all I have for the Rams and the Colts. So we are going to get to talk a little bit of college football. We're going to skip Tigers guards. I'm going to talk about it last, but we're going to probably breeze through these couple big games that happened this past weekend. LSU falling to Ole Miss. You went with the Ole Miss pick, and that was frankly correct. The Ole Miss defense really stepped up. I think shocked some people with how well they played, and frankly, I think it's more of a concern for LSU because their offense once again did completely nothing.
Yeah, and I believe Garrett Nussmeier was asked after the game, regarding his health, and I don't know if he really didn't deflect. He just straight up said he wasn't going to answer the question, which I don't know if he's banged up or if that has something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, he missed some throws in this game. He really did not look that good. And this Ole Miss defense, he gave up a ton of points to Arkansas. I mean, this Ole Miss defense is really nothing special, but they did absolutely look great here in this game. But Ole Miss overall, I thought it was a really big win. I mean, I wasn't really high on this LSU offense going into the game. I couldn't believe that Ole Miss was just such a short favorite. But I think this game says a lot more about Ole Miss than it does LSU. To be honest, I mean, give Lane Kiffin a lot of credit. You come into the season with Austin Simmons, and now you shift to Trinidad Chambliss, and you've got him playing really well. So I really like what Lane Kiffin has done this year. I don't know if I'm sold on Ole Miss being a national title contender just yet, but certainly off to a good start. They're going to be ranked really highly. Definitely a big win. I'd like to really see this team go on the road though, and really be put to the test.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next thing is some road adversity because even last year when they beat Georgia, that was at home. So we'll see for Ole Miss. There is another team in the SEC though that you think is a national title contender. So let the people hear your thoughts on Alabama.
Yeah, look, this Alabama team, they were my pick to win the SEC before the season. I was all in on Kalen DeBoer, having a full season to recruit. Ty Simpson has been there for a few years. And now, look, here, the hard thing with Bama is that obviously me and you growing up, we were used to the Nick Saban Alabama where they were just dominant year in and year out, and we haven't necessarily seen that. It's a different team, it's a different culture now. But again, that's not a bad thing. Kalen DeBoer has his culture and he has what works, and I think we're finally seeing it be put to the test here. But this Bama team, they lost to Florida State week one, and they were double digit favorites. But I think honestly, I think that was just a fluke game. I mean, it was week one. It was in the rain, which really favored the Florida State play style. But now you're really seeing Ty Simpson getting better each week. This was a good Georgia team. I mean, they were ranked fifth. This is a Georgia team that had beaten everybody up to this point, and Ty Simpson made light work of this Georgia defense. But this Alabama defense really stepped up in that second half, completely blanking Georgia in the second half.
Yeah, the last score was in the middle of the third quarter by Georgia. They got a touchdown to cut it to 24-21. And then this is something that we haven't really talked about within the game, but Kirby Smart in Georgia early in the fourth quarter where they were in the red zone. It was a fourth and short. They elected to go for it, trying to get the conversion and then also take the lead moving forward. They didn't get it. And then from that point on, no one scored. So Alabama's defense really stepped up. That was their biggest question mark. I've heard very poor things of their defense from their fan base, and watching them, I also could attest to this. So that was really a big question mark for them. Their defense obviously locked in. This is a big game for Alabama, arguably outside of Auburn, the game that has become their biggest rival, frankly. And Ty Simpson continues to uh, prove the doubters wrong because he was a previous 4 or 5 star quarterback and was benched for 3 years, and he finally gets his chance, and now he's proving his capabilities. So big win for Alabama. They're one of the weirdest teams to try to, in my opinion, like give some sort of credit to in terms of a national title contender, not just because they had the loss to Florida State. Florida State lost and what I thought would be a lock to Virginia. So everybody's all over the place right now. We'll see how Florida State looks this week when they are at home against Miami. That'll be a big game, and if Miami wins it, you can go ahead and mark them in the ACC championship game because their schedule is very light. So this is a big game for both of those teams, and for Alabama, this was huge for them. They're going to be at home this week playing a Vanderbilt team that beat them last year when they were number one. So it's number 10 versus number 16. I think Vanderbilt's flying under the radar a little bit. They are undefeated. They've looked very good. Now, are they legit? We don't know. They beat up on a South Carolina team on the road without Lenore Sellers for 2.5 quarters. So we don't know on Vanderbilt, but I think we'll find out a lot about them as well as Alabama in this next game this week.
Yeah, I'll give a little spoiler. That's definitely going to be one of my games of the week this week. I will definitely be talking about that on my personal TikTok. I mean, this is I'm excited for this game. I'm a big Diego Pavia fan. I love what they've done at Vanderbilt. And yeah, you are right. They did beat Bama last year. That really kind of put away Bama's season, which I think is kind of why a lot of people were not as high on Bama going into this season. But yeah, it's going to be at Bama this year. But I have my questions about the Vanderbilt defense, of course. But yeah, that offense is absolutely no joke. So it's kind of tough for Bama. You know, you go to Georgia, you get a big win in a rivalry that you've essentially dominated in the last 10 years. So who knows if they'll be riding the high of that big upset win. But you got to turn around right now, and you're gonna have your hands full. So we'll see just how good Kalen DeBoer can get his team up to speed and ready for what's going to be just yet another big game.
Yeah, I think when the schedule dropped and you had Alabama, Georgia, and then Vanderbilt right there looming after the fact, I definitely think a lot of people circled that game as a potential trap game for Alabama or whatever the circumstances were at that point in the year. This game's definitely been circled as a very important one for both teams, obviously. Vanderbilt has the rivalry with Tennessee. They play them every year, but lately they've been playing Alabama every single year. And it's obviously been very one sided because of Nick Saban, but since the post Saban era, obviously Vanderbilt has Alabama's number in that last season. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a very good game, potentially high scoring game as well. And a team who has not been in high scoring games is Ohio State. And we have posed the question, are they the best defense in the country?
Yeah, I think this is an easy yes. I know they. I don't want to say they haven't played anybody. I mean, obviously they played Texas in week one, but not that high on Texas now. And I think that game was kind of favoring Ohio State, just with Arch Manning first start and whatnot. You're playing at home. But I mean, look, this was a big test for this Ohio State team. Obviously, one of my picks was Washington plus 7.5 because we know how good this Washington offense is, especially at home. They were on like a 21-22 home game win streak or something. And look, Ohio State could have easily folded in this game. Early on in the game, Ohio State went for it on fourth down, didn't get it after I think Washington was already up 3-0. Brandon Ennis fumbled a punt return, gave the ball back to Washington. But this defense continued to get stops, and the offense wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say it wasn't giving them a ton of help, but it was 7-3 at halftime. It was a close game. I mean, but yeah, what Pam Patricia has done with this defense is just absurd. I mean, Arvell Reese is playing out of his mind right now. Caleb Downs is doing exactly, what we knew he was capable of. So it was interesting. I saw PJ Fleck because Ohio State plays Minnesota this week. I saw PJ Fleck kind of talking about this defense, and he just said that his defense is so good because they throw so many things at you, and you just don't see that at the college level because it's so hard for defenses at this level to really hone in and be good on one thing. To see a defense like this throw something different at you every single down is just a testament to how Matt Patricia gets his defense ready week in and week out. And look, I thought Ohio State's defense last year was the real reason why they won the national championship. All those red zone stops throughout that playoff run was unreal. This defense might be better than last year.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that, and I said after losing all the talent Ohio State did after last season, I didn't even think this defense was better than what they were, not just last season, but the year before that when they had two consecutive top 3 to 5 defensive finishes. So this defense is on a whole nother level. I never expected this out of Arvell Reese. He's a good player, but I didn't think he would look this good. They moved CJ Hicks out of that linebacker position down to the edge rusher, and he hasn't got to play a lot, but he's in that rotation. That's the other thing, too. Ohio State's almost going D line by committee in a lot of situations, and it's keeping those guys fresh. Everybody's getting some PT, everybody's happy, and frankly, on those third downs, they can try to harass the quarterback. So it's worked out. Igbinosun has finally been able to learn how to play defense without holding. It's honestly unlocked the secondary because you can't just throw it deep, get 2 straight PIs, and go for it. I mean, we haven't even seen Devin Sanchez in this defense yet, and Jermaine Matthews honestly probably should have been playing more than Denzel Burke last year, if we're being completely honest. He's the most talented defensive back outside of Caleb Downs on their defense. So they've got a lot of players who have been almost second fiddle for a while, and they've been groomed, and now they've got Matt Patricia with all that NFL experience and NFL play calling and scheming, and it's giving them an upper hand. And they've not allowed double digit points at all, except against Ohio with the 10 points they had. So this defense is legit. Obviously, with a defense that good, it makes it easy for the offense, and it's very easy for Julian Sand right now in particular. But I agreed. I thought this would be a very close game. It frankly was. I know the score is not going to really indicate that, but it was a close game. Ohio State went out, opening drive, again, turnover on downs in the red zone. I was like, here we go. It's beginning. It's like Ohio State Purdue. I mean, that's the first thing I always think of when Rondale Moore went crazy. So they were able to kind of stop that momentum, get things going after the first quarter. But the touchdown right before halftime was huge and really vaulted their momentum heading into the second half. And they'll be obviously a team to watch moving forward. They still have to play Illinois. That's a road game. They've got to play Penn State at home. Obviously Michigan. So they've got a they've got several other big games that'll be worth watching and taking notes on throughout the season.
Yeah, and well, one last thing that I'll add is I think a lot of people doubted Ohio State going into this year because they weren't high on the Matt Patricia hire. But look, I think they only think that just because he wasn't the best head coach in the NFL, but he was a damn good defensive coordinator, and he was really good with those Patriots teams. So I mean, Ohio State's playing really good football right now. If I had to pick for a team, if I had to confidently pick a team to go win the national championship right now, I'd probably pick Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree. Two other teams in the Big Ten who had national championship aspirations were Oregon and Penn State. They got to play this week. We shared some different kind of thoughts on this pre-recording, but um, you expected Penn State to win this game. I expected Oregon to at least cover the spread, and I honestly liked them more in this game than Penn State, despite the atmosphere, despite the whiteout, despite the Penn State defense. Oregon came into this game. They were trailing, or no, they were in front, excuse me. And then Penn State had that crazy fourth quarter. They tied
Hmm.
it up. They then had the ball first in OT, scored again. So three unanswered scores by Penn State, and Oregon was able to rally and still win this football game and hold Penn State to no score in the second OT. So it was a crazy game. For two OTs and it to only be 30-24 says a lot about each team's defense. But again, it sparks the same questions about Penn State that we have continued to have.
Yeah, I think overall, I think this game says a lot more about Oregon than it does Penn State. First of all, Oregon, I was blown away. Dante Moore is the real deal. Dan Lanning, I love the way he's been able to recruit and what they've done over there at Oregon. So yeah, I'm all in on Oregon. They're going to be really good. I think the clear top two teams in the country are really them and Ohio State right now, just based off of resume so far. But yeah, James Franklin now 4-21 against top 25 teams, and Drew Aller. Look, probably the toughest quarterback to evaluate in the country is Drew Aller, just because he has all the physical tools. I mean, you see the arm strength, you see his some mobility, but you just don't put it. You just can't put it together, and he doesn't have a signature win. He's been starting for a couple of years now. I honestly have a feeling that Drew Aller is going to be one of those guys in this draft class where. First of all, I think he came back. I think he came back to school because I don't think he got the feedback that he did in the NFL draft that he wanted. I think he didn't go as high as he thought he was going to, so I think that's why he came back. So I did think he made the right choice. But I have a feeling he's going to be one of these guys where his draft stock is just going to raise more and more the farther we get away from football season and the closer we get to the draft. So the farther away that you see from him playing actual football, and the more that you just see kind of some of this combine stuff, I think his draft stock is going to climb. Yeah, to your point, I thought Penn State was going to win this game. Honestly, I thought they did. I thought this was the perfect game for James Franklin to right the ship. Completely get rid of all those big game James narrative and really put his stamp on it and show that Penn State is going to be that team this year, and they didn't. I mean, they gave us 3-3 at halftime. I was just like, man, what is this? I was not impressed with their offense whatsoever. I look. I mean, it went to overtime, right? We know anything can happen in overtime, but ultimately, Oregon made more plays at the end of the game. Drew Aller threw a bad interception in overtime. His Penn State O line is not quite as good as we had thought. But honestly, that was kind of my concern with Penn State, right? They weren't blowing out any of these teams like Villanova or FIU, the teams that they should be stomping all over. They just weren't. And yeah, the thing for Penn State is they really have a 2 or 3 game regular season, right? Not Oregon, but what are their main regular season games? Ohio State, Michigan, and they have not won those games.
Yeah, and all the reasons you just said are why I was comfortable leaning Oregon. The coaching staff, obviously, they have a unique skill set in that receiver room that they look for. Despite my skepticism on Dante Moore, I think he's been a lot more consistent than Drew Aller.
Hmm.
And Oregon has played somewhat slightly better competition. I'm saying that very lightly in comparison to Penn State, but they
I
looked
mean,
far
they've at least played Power Four teams.
yes, they look far more consistent in those games
Mm-hmm.
than State did. So I thought this was definitely Oregon all the way. The way the game played out was fascinating. 17-3 Penn State rallies. It's one of those rare Penn State rallies in big game, and you think maybe they're going to win this. You know, they did that against Ohio State basically last year too, and got stuffed in the red zone consistently. So it's the same thing for Penn State as always. I agree on the Drew Aller thing. He's definitely one of the hardest guys to evaluate. They stress the running back position while failing to put the most reliable receivers around him, which doesn't help. But they usually have very good tight ends, and that was the other problem in this game. Penn State couldn't really get the run game going. Singleton had 10 carries for like 20 yards. Now, Katron Allen had 62 plus yards. I mean, they have the best running back tandem in the country, and they haven't been able to do anything with it for now 2 to 3 years. And Aller threw a really bad pick in the playoff game last year against Notre Dame. He
Mm-hmm.
threw a bad one here against Oregon. Um, he gives me vibes of like Wyoming Josh Allen combined with UCLA Josh Rosen. Frankly, like in terms of trying to evaluate him, Josh Rosen had all the physical tools. I frankly thought he was the best quarterback in that draft class. He basically didn't really get much of a chance in the NFL, but he didn't look great when he got his opportunity to begin with. So he's falling into that Josh Rosen mold for me personally in terms of comping him, but it's also kind of Wyoming Josh Allen-ish. You see all the tools, but there's some bad decision making. He's not consistent enough, and that's what it was with Josh Allen. And then he had his combine, the physical tools stood out, and he obviously went where he did. So I would put him in that ballpark in terms of the evaluation part. Therefore, I would also argue probably overrated. Penn State's had a lot of overrated quarterbacks in our time of being out of the womb. So, I mean, Christian Hackenberg was supposed to be a stud. He was supposed to take Penn State to the moon. Nothing ever happened. It was a bunch of like 8-4, 9-3 seasons max. The Sean Clifford thing we can go on and on about. Very just flatline. I mean, honestly, I would have considered playing Prabula at Missouri now over Sean Clifford. To be honest with you, he's that talented. And the Trace McSorley thing, we already know that whole experience. It's just a guy that has a lot of grit and is frankly a really good dual threat quarterback, but he wasn't ever going to take Penn State to anything relevant. So they've had a lot of suspect QBs, and Drew Aller unfortunately has fallen into that list.
Yeah, and you know the obviously the college success hasn't been there, but you've heard me say this before. I think that I've said before, Drew Aller is the perfect NFL prospect. He has all the tools that NFL scouts and coaches will want, will feel like that they can build on, will feel like that they can take that frame and they can develop that. Right, so I honestly, teams are probably going to reach on him in the draft, and it's probably going to make a lot of people mad. But like, that's just going to be the fact of the matter. Well, whether you agree with it or not, like Drew Aller, he has the big arm. He's not the most accurate, but I feel like teams are going to think that they can develop that, and teams are just going to look at the frame and overall. And honestly, that's why I said that I think his draft stock is going to go up the farther away you get from him playing actual football because he's gonna look good at the combine, right? He's going to look good at the combine. He's going to look good at his pro day. He's going to put up good numbers and do all of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little overdrafted, but teams are definitely going to take a chance on him.
100%. I don't have any other thoughts, frankly, but I feel like we've kind of gone through the entire Penn State wave.
Yeah.
James Franklin has a bottom five win percentage against top six opponents or top 25. Like it's all of them. It's all those statistics. So hopefully Penn State can somehow right the ship. They don't have many high quality games to do that. They'll probably still be in the playoff though because of that. So I definitely think they're a top 12 team in the country and should be playing. However, if they don't win those other two games, namely Michigan and Ohio State, like most years, they probably won't be in with the three losses. So we'll see. But I would like to transition now into our picks from last week, recap them real quick before we get into Tigers guards. You went 2-1. The Texans spread was a, I guess, phenomenal play here because the Titans don't score. But Texans covered 7.5. You went Ole Miss 2.5. They also covered the small favored spread for them. Washington plus 7.5 obviously did not hit. However, they played very well, and frankly, it felt very 7.5 ish all game. So I thought it was a good line, if I'm being honest. For me, TCU plus 3.5 did clear. I thought TCU would win the game. They were up all game and then
It
blew the
looked
lead
like
up by
up
three.
17-0. Yeah,
So
it really looked like
I
they were. I really thought they were going to win that game too.
I guess shout out Arizona State. I'm glad I went with the spread on that one. I'm not happy I went with the spread on Florida State. Blowing Virginia. Tommy Castellanos decided to have his worst game in 2 years against Virginia. I mean, of all teams. And I guess Virginia has been the surprise of the ACC, and they have a very easy ACC schedule. If they can win out or even lose just one game, they themselves might be playing in the ACC championship game. So that's a team to monitor. Tennessee, the line was of course 7.5. They won by 7 against Mississippi State. I was very impressed with how Mississippi State played in this game, though. I didn't think it would honestly be within one score. Thought it'd be closer to 14 to 17 points. Tennessee scored points, but their defense allowed a ton of points, and they won it overtime. The Vols got the victory by 7, so that's a miss. Titans, we don't even need to talk about, a clear miss. The Niners managed to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars with Brock Purdy playing. So the line was 3.5 with him uncertain. He ends up playing, so the line probably went up from minus 3.5. They managed to lose. Awesome. And the Bears, I want to thank them for the block field goal. Uh, Bears money line worked. The fact that they were going to lose that game with Geno having 3 interceptions and only like 115 passing yards is just very, very suspect. I don't understand how the Bears can go from dominating the Cowboys last week, who then tied this week with the Packers, to then struggling with the Raiders. It doesn't really make sense to me, but good job on the win, I guess, Bears. Good job. So that'll leave us with our amazing final topic. The game of, in my opinion, the day, which was Tigers Guards. The Cubs, they kind of took care of business handedly. That Yankees Red Sox game had its moments, very good. However, we got, the elite pitching duel between Crochet and Breed, I think, was outclassed by the pitching duel we got tonight, or I should say today, this afternoon, between the Tigers and the Guards. Because, man, that guy, Tarek Skubal, is a madman, and it is so fun to watch him consistently dominate on the mound, no matter the team. He's seen the Guards, I think, 6 times this year, and this was that final time, and he had his best performance against them.
Yeah, and the thing is that the guards beat him the last two times that he started, but they didn't really hit him hard. I mean, they didn't really like. It's not like they shelled him. So I honestly, like, I was not surprised at all to see this. I think a really underrated aspect of Scooble's game is he pitches so quick. Like he gets the ball back, he's already in his windup and he's going. I mean, he's coming at you. If you're the hitter, you don't have any time to think. So I think it's a huge testament to Scooble's conditioning, just the kind of athlete he is. I mean, yeah, 14 strikeouts. He had our hitters in a frenzy all game, especially the bottom of the order. I mean, John Kenzie Noel. You might as well just walked up and said, "Yeah, I'm good." I might as well just take the out. Like it would be 3 pitches in the other batter's box. I don't even get me started. But overall, yeah. I mean, look, Terry School's the best pitcher in baseball. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. I will say though, I think for the Guardians, there's a couple of interesting lineup and management decisions. So first of all, so the lineup came out. So the thing with Stephen Vogt, right? I'm a big Stephen Vogt guy. He won Manager of the Year last year. I think he's a great manager. I love what he's done with this team. But goddamn, man, I cannot stand some of his lineup decisions. And I said this in the beginning of the year. It's like he's playing MLB The Show. He loves his lefty righty matchups. Anytime it's a lefty pitcher, he's going to load it up with righties. Does not matter who it is. And we had this problem with Kyle Manzardo, lefty hitter. He would not play him against lefties. Refused to play him against lefties. He's finally come around to that at least. So he's getting better. But I mean, Jonathan Rodriguez was batting cleanup today in a playoff game. You know how many games he's played in the last 2 months with the Guardians?
I
Two.
do know he's batting 197 on the season, so
Yeah.
yeah.
he was up for a little bit. He was in Columbus for 2 months, and then came back and he played 2 games with us. I mean, he hit the ball over the weekend fine, but it's just, I mean, he had an error in right field, and then John Kenzie Noel had an error at first base. So I mean, you had 2 guys who had played 75% of the season in Columbus, uh, cost you the game essentially. I mean, they combined for 5 strikeouts and two errors, and that one error in the first inning led to the Tigers' run. So I thought that was interesting. And then at the end of the game, Stephen Vogt ends up pinch hitting. So I believe he pinched hit. I think it was Rodriguez because Will Vest came in. And he goes, so Jose Ramirez gets to third base, nobody on or nobody out. I was like, all right, awesome. Sack fly, sack bunt, anything could tie this game up. Maybe go to extras. We could see what happens, right? I was excited because our offense was lifeless all game. And George Valera comes in, a known swing and miss guy, and strikes out. I would have went Daniel Schneemann there, somebody who's played a lot more at this level. George Valera, I think, has only been up for like 16 or 17 games, and he's played well. He's played fine, so I'm not taking anything away from him. But yeah, I give Will Vest a lot of credit because then Manzardo came up and he hit that chopper to Will Vest and caught Jose Ramirez in no man's land. A lot of people were like, "Yeah, this was the first time that I'm really like blaming Jose Ramirez." Like, man, what were you doing? I'm like, I don't know. He was running on contact. I tweeted this out after the game. He was running on contact, and it was a great play by Vest. He fielded it perfectly. He knew right where to go with it. So I overall have to give the Tigers a lot of credit. Right, this game was I don't want to say it was a coin flip because the Tigers definitely had the advantage with Scooble, but I thought that if the Guardians had kept it close like they did, I thought they would have the advantage with the bullpen because the Guardians bullpen is so good. But yeah, the Tigers take a 1-0 lead. I definitely want to get your thoughts on this, but me personally, I don't think the series is over at all. I think the Guardians are very alive tomorrow. Because I do think that if the Guardians win tomorrow, I think they'll carry that momentum over into Game 3, and I think they can win Game 3. But yeah, not the way that the Guardians wanted to start this game, but definitely a huge win for the Tigers. They had to win with Scooble on the mound.
Yeah, I think it. I just want to say real quick, as a beloved Detroit Tigers fan, I despise with my passion the Cleveland Guardians. They're just a
I
pesky,
don't blame
arrogant.
you. Do not blame you.
I didn't get to watch, the last infield massacre that happened with all the bunts, but got to witness it a little bit there in those middle innings when the guards started dropping bunts. We had a couple issues trying to field them. I was like, here we go, here we go. Then that's the thing. The guards have not hit hard off of Scooble, like at
No.
all, but have been very successful with the speed of their team at dropping a lot of these infield hits and getting on. So then they tie the game off the dropped weird like pop up fly ball at the end of the grass of the infield that Scooble fumbled with. He knows to throw it back to home. Throw is in late. At that point, I was like, all right, tables have turned. We need the offense to get going. And frankly, the Tigers stranded a lot of runners in this game, and I felt like it was going to be one of those games for them. In last year's series between these two teams, they stranded so many runners between games 2 and 4, and honestly, the Tigers probably should have won the series 3-1. But the David Fry homer happened, all that stuff. I've not seen Bo Brisky since May, and I'm happy I've not seen Bo Brisky since May. To be honest with you, but I thought the lineup decisions were interesting. Stephen Vogt and AJ Hitch, they manage games very similarly. They love
Hmm.
playing chess with each other, so a lot of that pinch hitting stuff. In the ninth inning or in the eighth inning, when the guards took Gavin Williams out of the game, and I thought, all right, lefty on lefty here, they're going to pinch hit for Kerry Carpenter. We actually left him in the game, and he had a few pitches he could have hit. He's not the greatest against lefties, so they were in the zone. He frankly just missed them. And I was happy to see AJ Hinch sticking with this guy rather than going to the known lefty killer Jahmai Jones. I thought that would have made sense to do there with runners on, but it is what it is. In the ninth, for the Tigers, they have 2 on in scoring position with no outs, and they don't score. So the team loves to strike out at an ungodly rate. It's really frustrating. Um, I, my lock of the day, and I said this at 8 a.m. actually, was Gavin Williams strikeouts at even 6.5 It was plus 100. He easily cleared the line. Through 3 innings, I was getting a little worried because we only had three, but Tigers, they come around. They start to swing and miss at everything. He's got some disgusting stuff as well. His sweeper is filthy. That's going to be a pitch that this team is going to struggle with. But at the end of the day, the Tigers weren't going to win the series if they didn't take this first game with Scuba on the mound, and they were able to. It was very reminiscent of last year's game. Guards are hanging around. Kerry Carpenter hits the bomb in the ninth inning to give them the lead. So, in a lot of ways, it was similar to that, somewhat different, but Tigers are going with Casey Mize tomorrow. That is between the two of Jack Flaherty and Casey Mize. I would want to see Casey Mize. The guards have seen Casey Mize a decent bit this year, a little bit more than Flaherty, but I'm more confident with Mize and how he's performed all season, frankly, more than I am with Jack Flaherty because he has given up a lot of home runs. He's getting a lot of contact hit on him. And this is a team that loves contact, and that's not the type of pitcher you want out there. So I think going with the guys who have some stuff makes sense. Obviously, Flaherty has better stuff than Mize, frankly, on a Ks per nine perspective, but in terms of the consistency, Mize has had it, Flaherty hasn't, and I'm honestly more confident in that. I think this is a big game for the Tigers. Just to, once again, as you said, that last game of the series between them right before that last week, it's really important that they, have that mental block shattered, that they can beat the guards, and they were able to on the road. So it's completely different when you're up 1-0 in a wild card series best of 3 or if you're down 1-0. It completely changes like your philosophy of the game. So I think the Tigers need to be aggressive early in the game tomorrow, but they need to also play within their means. So we'll see how the guards perform. I know we'll probably see a lot of lefties now. Um, and to your point, I just think Austin Hedges should never be in the lineup. I know he's in there for his defense, but Bo Naylor, even lefty lefty, is probably a better hitter than Austin Hedges is. And ironically, he got two basically freebie walks today because School didn't even challenge him on the two ABs. If it wasn't for that, School probably would have just pitched the whole game, and they would have never saw Will Vest, if we're being completely honest. So, Scooble gave him like 8 pitches, frankly, that he probably would want back because he would have pitched into the ninth inning. But I thought they did a really good job of somehow getting out of that. Once Ramirez got to third, I looked up and I was like, great play, Javi. I looked down for a second. I look up. He's running the third. I didn't know what happened.
Mm.
So um, I was shocked the guards were not able to get Ramirez in with the way that they are so successful at infield hitting and bunting. I thought we'd see a squeeze potentially, and it frankly just didn't happen.
Yeah, I thought that would have been the perfect time to try and execute one of those, and that would have been very guards-esque to do that. So I'm also very surprised that they didn't go and do that. But real quick, you mentioned AJ Hinch likes he stuck with his guy with Kerry Carpenter. That's what Vogt did with Gavin Williams. He left him out there to start the seventh inning. And Stephen Vogt was known last year for giving guys shorter leashes in the playoffs, and it makes sense, right? When you have one of the better bullpens like the Guardians do, it makes sense, right? I think Gavin Williams was around 80 pitches. I definitely thought he was going to be done because Riley Green came up, lefty. Stephen Vogt loves his lefty-lefty matchups. I thought he was going to bring in a lefty. He left Gavin Williams in there, and I'm not mad at it because Gavin Williams was pitching so good. But I mean, obviously, it's hindsight is 2020. It's easy to say now that he should have went to the bullpen, but I really thought he was going to go to the bullpen there. I thought he should have, because does Riley Green hit that double off a lefty? I think it's a little more unlikely than the third or fourth time that he's seen Gavin Williams. So, but yeah, overall good game one. I know it didn't go the way that I wanted for my team, but it was a good playoff game. Excellent performance from Terry Skubal. Really can't say enough about him, but. I'll have boots on ground for the for game two. I'm definitely excited. Hopefully, Guardians can keep their season alive.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm fairly certain it's going to go to a game three. Frankly, I'm curious to see how the Tigers perform. I believe it's Bibby on the mound for the guards. I don't
Who
know.
who hasn't Bybee, who hasn't been great this year. That was really who we wanted to be our ace this year, and it was kind of been Gavin Williams instead. But Bybee over the course of his last couple of starts throughout September, he has been better. So I'm hoping he can carry some of that momentum over. But he has been susceptible to the long ball. So I'm not gonna lie, it feels like a Kerry Carpenter home run is coming.
I
It
was
feels like it.
I would say that it definitely can feel like it. It Kerry Carpenter is one of those guys when he hits it, and he's got that bat flip, that slick, just bat flip. You know it's going somewhere. The Tigers have been very quiet offensively, obviously for a while. Their bats have not gotten going very well, but they have a lot of guys who can do damage with the home run ball. Javi Baez had a big game today with the 2 hits. I know they probably got stranded both times, but there were just moments where some of the other guys for the Tigers were able to step up. Javi Baez in that 9 spot. The defense played very well, I think, considering all of the circumstances of how the guards can play. Wencio Perez, I have questions because he loves to go up and it's like an auto out. He just swing, swing, swing. Um, but I was pleased with most of their swing decisions for the most part, and the takes they were able to get. Parker Meadows able to draw a walk on Williams, and they weren't able to get a lot. Williams led the league once again in walks, but he was on it today, and I thought he would honestly start the seventh. I know you thought otherwise, but I thought why not? He was feeling it. He had retired so many batters in a row. It made sense at that time, and
Yeah.
I might have been a little pressure there with Skubal still going out as well. You kind of wanted to keep that momentum going. But despite that, Riley Green's been a bottom 10 hitter against lefties for 4 months now, and I think going lefty there would have made sense. I think if it was like, the situation where it was the last out of an inning and you can bring a pitcher in for just him, I think it would have made sense to do it because it would have been lefty lefty, go to the new inning, new pitcher because Perez is a switch hitter. So we'll see these teams. We're going to see a lot of chest tomorrow, I think. I think Mize will probably go 4 innings. He'll try to have a bullpen day after that. Known home run give giver up or Tyler Holton will probably pitch. Follow Mize. It's going to happen. So we'll see. But I'm glad I don't have to see David Fry or Lane Thomas because Lane Thomas had one shining moment and then literally just fell off the face of the earth as a offensive player and somewhat of a defensive player, and he's not even on the postseason roster for the Guards, and he
He's
hasn't been on
been
the
yeah.
roster for a while.
He's
So
been hurt the entire year, which has been unfortunate because that was really the guards' big buy last trade deadline was him. That was their big move to try and put them over the top. And obviously, I mean, you could say the trade paid off because he helped win you that series against the Tigers. So I mean, you could say it was a successful move. But then he's really been non-existent this year. But because of that, we've seen the rise of Angel Martinez. So at least that's been nice.
yeah, his rise and his fall is Lane Thomas, but it's fine. The Tigers will do their typical left, right, left, right, left, right, like they love to. They're probably not gonna go Meadows tomorrow. Maybe not McKinstry. We'll see. It'll be. I can just guess the Tigers lineups at this point. To your point about vote, like it's very just who's gonna. Glaber's batting second. Riley Green, if it's a righty, is batting fourth, and Torkelson's batting fifth. And then that cleanup spot can be Perez, Carpenter, as well, and it will be Carpenter. And then that leadoff guy going to be a lefty. I'm surprised it was not Colt Keith, to be honest with you. He has been banged up, though, so we'll see. I don't know at this point. Tigers will probably literally have the exact same lineup tomorrow, and the guards will the complete opposite because it's a righty on the mound, and it's probably going to be a heavy righty day for the Tigers. So we'll see. I'm excited for the game. I was trying to go, but the 1:08 p.m. start time makes it a little difficult to be honest. So um, I will be watching from afar. I will be rocking my Miguel Cabrera jersey like I am right now, which I put on just for this episode. But if you have any other thoughts, the floor is yours. If not, that'll be the conclusion.
Yeah, I think we're all good. I think we pretty much covered everything we wanted. Yeah, playoff baseball's back. As
Playoff
I'm watching the
baseball
Reds get
is back.
destroyed right now, 8-0.
Yeah, playoff baseball is back. We had 3 good games.
Yeah,
Obviously, the Reds, they're the team that's, we made it for once, and they're getting clobbered. So good for the Reds. Terry Francona, former Guards manager as well. Shout out to him and his battles with health and stuff.
of course.
Very influential figure in baseball. So outside of that, that will be the conclusion of episode 3 of Beyond the Box Score. We are Trayvon Hastings and Joey Korzanowski. Once again, thank you for listening. Have a good rest of your week and safe weekend. That's a wrap. Have a good one.